not here to debate with anyone. I have devoted all of my adult life to this subject. I only debate with my equals. All others I teach.
Let us dine on the intellectual stupidity of a man by the name of Herschel Walker.
And power here in Louisiana, as y'all have in Texas. A couple of questions real quick. Mr. Herschel Walker has not had an opportunity to speak up here in the last part of this hearing. If he's still with us, I just wanted to pitch it to him and give him an opportunity to see if there was anything that's been said so far last couple of hours here that he wanted to respond to. Mr. Walker?
Yes, I'd like to respond, and I want to thank Ms. Jackson Lee. I'd like to ask, does she know the year of those pictures? And the reason I ask that is whenever I get on a subject, I do facts finding myself. And one of the things I looked up and I asked my mom is how many African American was alive today that was in slavery, which is none. So I go to.
Before we go any further, I just want to address that particular point. And we don't have to talk about slavery, which a lot of people like to do. We can talk about after slavery. Let's do that. Let's take the argument away from slavery, since people found so many points, fault lines in that narrative, when there aren't any, but they have embraced them so ubiquitously that you have it to where anybody can raise those arguments in contravention to slavery. And normally what you hear is everybody had slavery. Well, what about the Jewish slavery? Well, what about Irish slavery? All these slaveries which never happened. Slavery in Ireland was indentured servitude, and there is no archaeological, anthropological, or historical narrative supporting the theological proposition that Jews were enslaved in Egypt or commit. Be that as it may, we can leave that alone. Please leave that narrative alone, and let's take it to after slavery, when the black people were released allegedly from bondage, the Emancipation Proclamation, 1865. Let's go from there and move onward. What happened from 1865 to date? Oh, well, I'm glad there was an attempt. There was the Reconstruction. That was met with extreme white backlash, which saw the birth of the Ku Klux Klan, the terrorism and the specter of lynching all throughout the country, It wasn't legislated in just by custom, practice, and policy just in the South. No, it was in the Midwest, it was in the North, it was everywhere you found black people at. Wherever the black experience was at, lynching was there. Okay? So we have that, which was used as a direct political weapon to suppress the black attempt at gaining political strength. Look what happened in Tulsa, Oklahoma, the Red Summer. Look what happens with the Homestead Act. Look what happens with the governmental indifference. Look what happened with the state complicity. Look what happened with every flow of legislative action directed towards black people. From black codes to the 1994 crime bill, disproportionately affecting deliberately and then indirectly black people. Disproportionately. Okay? So we don't have to dabble in that narrative. Now, to the other point that this curmudgeon is attempting to raise here, when he points out, well, well, wait a minute, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let him give you that bill, then I'm gonna cut this coon off.
Some of the older people for experience, and I remember my mom mentioning, how could we pay for your great-great-grandfather being burned to death? Or how could you pay for your great-great-uncle being hung? And I understand that those pictures are horrible, but right now, I think the facts founding is going to be very difficult to go back over history when history is not even taught in school on what we're trying to facts find. And that's what I think.
Now, listen to his logic. I'm not going to go in too deep on it, but listen to his logic. Basically, his logic is, how can we give reparations to address a historical narrative when that historical narrative isn't taught in school? But that overlooks the whole entire endeavor of HR 40, which is literally to study what happened so they can possibly give reparations to meet what actually happened. Right? Listen to how faulty his logic is. Listen to how weak and base it is. And that should give you sort of groundwork to understand the inevitable pinnacle point that he's trying to reach with his coonery.
It's so difficult because as I was looking up reparation, which I've been doing for the last year, it is very, very.
Again, for the last year, they just put a man in front of Congress, and I'm assuming the Republicans did it. As a matter of fact, positive the Republicans did it. They just put a man who spent 1 year of his illustrious life on the topic of reparations. Now, granted, I'm not trying to begrudge anyone's intellect. Truly, an individual, even myself, can learn a lot in a year, can sit down if they're truly committed to a topic and a task, can learn a lot in a year. However, when I speak, what I learned is made representative by the words I choose to articulate that knowledge. This man can't even form a coherent and cohesive sentence in referencing to what it is he's alleged to have learned in a year, nor can he speak it without reference to copious notes, which he cannot articulate either.
Difficult to find facts on different things of the African American history. And I think that's what's going to be very difficult in what we're doing right now.
I appreciate that response. Let me ask you, I know you're passionate about this and you give a lot of motivational speeches to young people and all that. Are there better ways that you think to uplift minority communities and provide opportunities for success than this idea of direct payments of taxpayer dollars? I mean, just in general, what do you say to young people to inspire?
I'm going to pause this cracker right here, and I'm going to also point out, people keep using this disingenuous argument of reparations being just monetary. That's the argument they keep using, that reparations is just monetary. But here's the problem with that argument. Reparations does not have to be just monetary. Reparations does not have to be just financial payouts. Reparations could literally be actually integrating the schools and teaching history on its own course, as it actually occurred. Reparations in contemporaneity with that, not in isolation. That's not an isolated aspect, or not. That's not reparations in ISO. No, that is just one portion of the whole reparations scheme. Reparations could also be removing any type of taxes from black people. I'm hearing the term foundational black Americans or American descendant of slaves, which would then make the primary focus that attached to genealogy. Whether or not a person in this country has some type of claim to that narrative. And they act as though or as if this is so hard to do, which is what HR 40, with the entire backing of the most powerful, the world's first hyperpower, the most financially dense country on the planet. With the backing of that type of monster, you're telling me that you can't come up with the money and the resources to do a comprehensive genealogy and probate type of historical search? A professor just did such a search, this type of search, with the Jewish involvement in slavery in Jamaica. He just went to the wills. He went to the court records and went to the wills and saw and looked at the bequeathments to their descendants. These aren't hard things to do. And then set up some type of department or commission for people who want to come and level valid claims. So what that you can't identify us because of the way that you treated us at that particular period in time, but you can identify our so-called owners, our ancestors' owners. You could definitely do that. You can identify how many people they had in chattel slavery. You could do that. So then all you have to do is start paying attention to and identifying the names, the surnames given to the people that were enslaved, the black people that were enslaved. Johnson, Jones, Henry, and Mark, and Caldwell, and all these other last names, all these other names, Jewish names, Spanish names, and this, that, and the other thing that were here in this country. And then find the people who have a genealogical link to that name in this country. That is not difficult. Court records document everything in this country is documented. So it is not then difficult for you to go to a court of probate, a court of chancery, and pull up these documented records and then attach the living body to the descendant. That is not difficult. It is comprehensive. It is not something that will happen in a year or 2 years, but it is literally something that is feasible. So to raise the disingenuous argument of it being complicated to attach these people all to one another, that's a disingenuous argument, and it deliberately misses the point. And then to what we are entitled to, going back to that before I get back to this pathetic argument that they're having here with this Herschel Walker Coon. Just like you put aside a plot of land, reparations does not need to just be monetary. There are territories, there are regions, there are places right now in this country that are completely in federal and governmental control. Give that land to black people. Set that land up for black people. You did the same thing for the Native Americans. The Native Americans don't have to pay taxes. Our atrocities were more sustained, and the Native Americans played a role in that process. They 100% played a role in that process for a particular period of time. Absolutely, the Native Americans had slaves, enslaved black people. Absolutely. There's a historical footprint there, and they got reparations. They got land. Black people never did. So there are all manner of ways and that would just be you simply honoring your oath back all the way back then to give us 40 acres and a mule.
Well, one of the things I say to young people to inspire them is, first of all, and I say, the hard truth is, and I say this, and I don't mean to offend anyone, but I said the African American community have to come together as a group to take care of our own. That's one of the biggest problems we have. We will not take care of our own. I said we cannot, as myself, who grew up in South Georgia, leave that community and leave all the African American kids behind without inspiring them that they can be me.
So he uses the Barack Obama argument, the exceptional Negro. Black people don't need just inspiration. We've been given Negro spirituals since slavery to date. As a matter of fact, one of the largest institutions in the black community in America, the African American community in America, is not banks, it's not schools, It's not mom and pop stores. It's actually the church. It's the church. So we don't need no more inspirational talks. And we don't need no more exceptional coons coming up and telling us to play by white people's rules and sit back and wait on the illustrious hands of the white capitalistic machine for our uppings and what's our just due. He didn't make it to where he's at being a political genius. He didn't make it where he's at using some type of awareness aligned to some type of profession that actually benefited black people. He made it by running a ball, by taking orders and reading playbooks and things of that nature. How does that contribute to the overall collective genius and inspirational narrative inherent in the black community that's lying there suppressed and oppressed and regressed? No, he doesn't offer us any. That's not inspiration. Oh, if you run fast enough, these white people will pay you money to see you break your body, for your joints to snap and have concussions that you'll deal with for the rest of your life, or hemorrhage in the inside. No, this dude's got coon logic. This is coon logic. But let us continue.
And I think the way we do this is we get back to remembering where we came from. And you have to be responsible. You know, a lot
The whole
of things
purpose of
we mentioned
HR 40,
today,
140.
No one talked
40,
about
pardon me.
responsibility. You know, I'm from the deep South. I know about racism. And a matter of fact, you know, we talked about the health. You know, everyone think I'm healthy, but I was diagnosed at one time as mentally unhealthy.
Not surprised by that at all. That doesn't surprise me in the least bit. Hence the argument that you have right now in relationship to being against reparations for your own people that you said you're trying to inspire. As a member of your alleged people, not inspired, Coon.
It because of being bullied as a little kid, because of my weight, because of my speech. But the things that happened to me was dealing with race. And I overcame through education, which is one of the major things that I talk to the young people today is education is more important than anything.
So he says that education is more important than anything. But if you go back earlier into his so-called pontification on this subject, he said history isn't being taught in schools. So if education is more important than anything, but you leave out one of the major tenets of that education, which is history, what are you saying now? So what kinds of education is so important to you, sir? What type of argument are you trying to raise here and present to the people, sir? This man's logic, his mind, and his entire spirit is that of a coon. And if those don't know the coon animal, you think of a raccoon or something like that. No, I don't. When I see a coon, I see the image of sludge. I see the image of sludge, of like a green, lumpy, luminescent aberration that cannot erect itself, that cannot do anything but slide along the grounds. If you go back to your Bible and refer yourself back to that, it would be the stuff that was on the earth when it was in blackness, moving around, the creepy and the crawly thing. That's what I see a coon as. I don't see a coon or a sellout or a Negro or a house nigga. I don't see these people as having any type of spinal correctitude or spinal fortitude. Nothing. They're just this invertebrate, green, gaseous aberration.
In life, because when you educate yourself, you're able to see the truth for yourself. And I'm not saying that I think HR 40 is absolutely incredible, but I think to just say it's a facts founding is very difficult. And facts founding of reparation, I think this is a little bit. I'm confused at the two right now.
Very good. I got 34 seconds left. Let me turn to Mr. Elder real quick. You touched on and began to explain the difference between equal rights and equal results, and I think a lot of people are confused about that. I just wonder, in the last 20 seconds or so, you want to articulate a little bit more about the difference between the two.
Well, it's really about what Herschel Walker just now said. It's about personal responsibility. There are think tanks on the left, like the Brookings Institution, and think tanks on the right, like the American Enterprise Institute, and they agree that the way to escape poverty is to do a handful of things. Number one, finish high school. Number two, don't have a kid until you get married. Number three, get a job, keep a job, and don't quit that job until you get another.
I don't know who this coon is speaking so eloquently in his coonery, but these arguments deflect back and place back onto an oppressed group of people the responsibility to overcome their oppression. But what these arguments tend to overlook deliberately is the governmental involvement in bringing about the condition in the first place. So the government can be complicit at all pivotal points in bringing about a result. But then when it comes time to take off the shackles and the chains of that result, it's on the oppressed to do it. That's what this argument says, and that's what it's always said. Personal accountability. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Handle the situation like a man. Man up, nigga. Listen to these bullshit ass narratives that these people always try to push out there and put back on the oppressed.
Job. And number four, avoid the criminal justice system. And they don't say that this formula only applies to you if you're white. They say this formula applies to anybody.
Very good. I yield back, Madam Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much. Your time has expired. I think to Mr. Walker and Attorney Elder, that is exactly what H.R. 40 is, to delve into the facts, to connect the history. And I'd only say that there is something to the heinous, vile, and vicious act of slavery that the descendants of enslaved Africans and those slaves experienced uniquely in this country. We are grateful that we have 300 organizations that are supporting that concept, but the fact-finding of H.R. 40 is just what is its task to respond to the concerns that have been expressed. I'd ask unanimous consent to submit into the record the letter from the LCCR, and we thank them for that letter.
Opportunity to speak on reparation, which has been spoken about many times over my lifetime, but over the past year has become a hot topic. I asked the question, why?
He wants to know, why are black people speaking about, and everyone is, I want to make sure that I don't narrow down this particular frame of view. It's not just black people. It's white people. It's so-called Gen X. It's Chinese people, Spanish people, Japanese people, Indian people, people across the world, all of them embracing that same exact narrative, equality. And in order to bring about equality in anything meaningful except words, you need to actually do something to bridge the gap that you yourself created. Now, if you can't or won't bridge the gap, then that's okay. I'm okay with that. Trust me, I'm okay with that, because I have no faith in nothing created by any white man ever in this country's history purporting to be law. And this is coming from a person who practices law. I have zero faith in the constitutional scheme, amendments, and enactments, the legislative body, the judicial body, or the executive branch. So I'm okay with you not giving it. But don't sit here and talk about equality, justice in policing, justice in the law, justice in this, that, and the other thing. Don't speak to me about equality when you know for a fact you don't want to do anything meaningful to bring about that result. Don't be a hypocrite. I have more respect for a man who lets me know where he stands, even if he's wrong, than a man that comes up as an angel and is nothing more than a devil. Direct quote, Malcolm X.
There's been many surveys show that a large percentage of black and white teens would say racism is better today than yesterday.
Racism. Listen to that logic. He said racism is better today than it is yesterday. Now, I'm assuming because of his broken syntax, I'm assuming he means that the level of racism meted out to black people and people of color, so-called people of color in this country, is better than today than what it was during Jim Crow and this, that, and the other thing. And my rebuttal to that pathetic argument would be, no, it is not. It is different, but it is the same. So because the complexities of it have become more acceptable and intellectually palatable to the visual, that has somehow overcome the result. That somehow works to circumvent the result. Racism is all about results. Racism is about keeping a class of people, a group or race of people, in a particular position beneath the race that is exercising racism. Do you follow me? So you can't have the argument, or you can't present the narrative that racism is better when the condition is still the same. It is still the same. Yes, you have the bourgeoisie and the hand-picked Negro who can come out and take these positions and talk about this bootstrap narrative that this Coon is clearly going to segue into, or has segued into. And that doesn't change the narrative. And Malcolm X said it, and it has been echoed in those people who have been studious enough to follow that great man. They too have said it. Black people are the only people in the world that have or allow people like this, entertainers, sports personalities, to come out and be spokespeople or spokesmen for the entirety of black people. What qualifies you? Look at the spokesman for white people. These people have went to Harvard and Yale and stuff like that. They have these robust histories in politics and understanding the ins and out of the political structure of America and the world even. And you give us this half-witted, dim-witted Coon to come out and speak to the condition, or even a very eloquent and highly educated Coon like Candace Owens, who can literally in one breath use the civil rights movement and the NAACP to exercise her rights because she was being discriminated against because of the color of her skin. And then she can do that in the one breath, and then in the next breath talk about there's no such thing as racism in America. America is healed from the blight and condition of racism, and we need to pull ourselves up by our own bootstraps. Says the woman taking hella white dick. And that's the reason why a lot of Pan-Africans, and even myself, I don't purport to be a Pan-Africanist. I purport to be an evidentialist. And if that has Pan-Africanistic leanings, so be it. But that's the reason why a lot of Pan-Africans say that you cannot be pro-black and date or deal with in a meaningful way a white person. The reasoning being is because either that white person, their conditioning, or whatever will rub off on you, or you will feel uncomfortable because of your love for this person to speak truthfully about the condition affecting your people. There is no middle ground. There is no middle ground. That doesn't mean you can't love a white person. Go off and love your white person and do what you need to do. What it does say is that you cannot be pro-black. You can be for black people, but that doesn't equate to being pro-black. You can be for black people, you can come out and you can speak to the condition, you can do all this other stuff, but you are not pro-black. You cannot be pro-black. That is an impossibility. And Candace Owens is the best example of that. The best example. Prior to her white leanings, she used the NAACP in the discrimination acts of the Civil Rights Act to exercise her rights because she was being discriminated against in the university she was going to on the basis of her skin color. But then when she goes into the sunken place and starts dealing with white people in an exclusive way, she takes a different stance. Antithetical to the stance that she took in antecedents. So we are the only people that allow these people to come out to be our spokesmen and our spokespeople and our spokeswomen, when their qualifications divorce them from that position. And to speak for black people, in order to speak for black people, you have to first understand the black condition. You can't understand it in a synopsis like this Coon did. Oh, I studied the topic for a year. That does not qualify you. Dr. Henrik Clark gave his entire life to the study of black people. Malcolm X gave his entire life to the study of his entire adult life to the study of black people, to the condition of black people and their upliftment. Marcus Garvey, not Noble Drew Ali, W.E.B. Du Bois. All of these people gave their entire waking lives, adult and otherwise, to the topic of black people and the upliftment of black people and the condition of black people. That's what qualified them to speak on us in a sweeping fashion. And W.E.B. Du Bois's pontifications and oratory in relationship to the black condition literally is the birthing of the Pan-Africanistic movement. To show you how powerful a person who has given themselves to the topic of the black condition, how powerful that voice can be when it understands the black condition. This Coon right here don't understand the black condition. He's trying to crawl back onto the plantation.
We use black power to create white guilt. My approach is biblical. How can I ask my Heavenly Father to forgive me if I can't forgive my brother?
And this is where we'll stop our dissecting of the Coon experience with Herschel Walker. The Bible is the black community's worst enemy. And I know that'll probably turn off a lot of people. I know that'll probably turn away a lot of people. So be it. I didn't ask you to be here in the first place. The fact of the matter is that the Bible, in any version you would like to play with that thing. Oh, well, the Old Testament was more truthful. Or the New Testament. Or the King James Version. Oh, this, that, and the other thing. Or the New Testament. The Bible, the religion of your oppressor, can do nothing for you but continue your oppression. Nothing. This Coon has just came out and said his position and stance is taking from the Bible. How can I ask for my brother this, that, and the other nonsense? Listen to that argument. And he's saying that so completely and utterly divorced from history that it's almost laughable if it wasn't so sad that we allow people like this to come out and speak for us. And I get it. We don't per se allow them. That's how this structure is set up. They're not coming out and speaking for us because we elected them. They're coming out and speaking against us because they elected them. They handpicked these Negroes to come out and speak to our condition as though or as if they could. This Coon literally said, I went to my mama to ask her whether or not there were any slaves still living today. That's his source. His mama in the Bible. Now, I have no holdups about the love of a mother to her son or her children. No holdups. I have no holdups about mother lit and that natural intuitive instinct and earthly wisdom of the black woman. No holdups about it whatsoever. But if you think you can sit here and tell me that you can speak on the condition of black people in the world today based on your mother without first presenting your mother so we can identify her qualifications to speak on it, you have to suck every And I mean every single piece of my motherfucking dick.
I am not here to debate with anyone. I have devoted all of my adult life to this subject. I only debate with my equals. All others I teach.